Welcome to the Healthcare Technology Report, a leading information source on healthcare technology companies and solutions. In this episode, we speak with Brad Kittredge, founder and CEO of Brightside Health, a virtual mental health provider founded in 2017 to improve access and quality of care for people with depression, anxiety, and other mood disorders. Brightside delivers precision psychiatry, clinically proven therapy, and a suicide prevention program, reaching patients nationwide through a network of licensed providers and a tech-enabled platform. Brightside partners with major insurers covering more than 130 million lives, ensuring timely access to care, often within 48 hours, and has published multiple papers validating its outcomes. Before founding Brightside, Brad held leadership roles at Lantern, 23andMe, and other health tech companies, where he focused on building evidence-based solutions to help transform patient experiences. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you liked the episode, click to follow. Brad, good to chat with you today. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So how was it growing up in Santa Barbara?
Oh, man, I was a lucky kid. Before I was fortunate to grow up in Santa Barbara, I grew up when I was younger in Boulder, Colorado. So I got to have like the mountains and the ocean. It was sort of a happy accident of just some work that my parents were doing and them feeling the call of the West from our roots in Michigan. And so it was great. It just, started me with this love of the outdoors and being active and being together with my family.
You mentioned two places that my wife wants to move to. We actually visited Boulder, and it's crazy what's happened there in terms of real estate. There's not as much supply, so the homes there are very expensive.
It's a very different place than when I was growing up in the 80s.
Yeah, it's changed quite a bit. And then Santa Barbara is obviously like amazing weather. And if you love the outdoors, you like cycling or biking, it's a great place to be, and hiking.
Yeah, I'm a water guy, so anything around the water, gets me excited. So it was really my happy place.
So let's fast forward to 2017, and you're at Lantern, and you had been in kind of product roles at other tech and healthcare, health tech related companies. What, I guess, was the catalyst to you deciding to found your own company?
For all those points to come together for me, I have to rewind like 10 years before that, where, and I'll go quickly through that, but the starting factor for me was in 2007, I, for the first time, had to use the healthcare system in a more in-depth way than I ever had before, and was just extremely frustrated and felt entirely disempowered and got very interested in consumerism in healthcare and what at that time was being called the empowered patient. So got really excited about the way that technology could drive and change that and wanted to really start digging into that direction. And that led me down that path of starting to build products that could help people that way. And so the easy intersection point of those considerations is really sort of the typical Silicon Valley, disruptive, let's add consumerism to stodgy old industries. And there are a number of companies doing that. And I was excited and fortunate to dive in with them. One of those companies was 23andMe, offering a direct-to-consumer genetic test. So I was really excited to join and help build the product team there. And on my third day of work, we got a letter from the FDA saying, actually, this is not a consumer product. This is a medical device, and it needs to come through our approval process. So it was obviously like everything came to a screeching halt. It was a very eye-opening experience and really fortunate experience in retrospect to see the collision of those two forces and a productive path through it. So we were able to submit and get approval for the first direct-to-consumer genetic test approved by the FDA. And for me, that was formative in terms of wanting to drive that kind of consumer change, not as an outside-in approach, but really from an inside-out. So having to build those things into the way healthcare really operates, the way it's delivered, paid for, and regulated. And so that's how I found Lantern as that last stop before starting Brightside, where it was a startup that had an investment and backing from a health system. So they had gotten an investment from UPMC Enterprises. So they had not only a health system, but a plan behind them. And so to me, that was this awesome opportunity and the confluence of forces there and really great team and people there. What I learned as we were doing some of our work and with some of the clinics at UPMC was that the magnitude and depth of the challenge around mental health care was way more complicated and it's just a much worse state than I had previously imagined. So we talked so much about access to care, and Lantern's solution was a great way for people to get quality care in an affordable way. But there was very little talk about quality of care. And what we saw as we looked at one of the best health systems in the country was that there were major gaps in the quality of care that were really systemic. And so that was what got me excited. While everybody in the industry was talking about access, I said, well, if we help more people get access to low quality care, we're not really solving the problem. And so that really started me on a mission of like, what does it take to build higher quality care? How do you actually adhere to what the evidence shows works? How do you build a great consumer experience on top of it? How do you empower more timely and informed decision making by clinicians? And how do you do that in a way with measurable outcomes so that you can actually demonstrate your results and keep getting better? So that was our challenge. And, I was fortunate to find some great co-founders to go try to tackle that together with me.
And there's various ways to tackle this problem. In fact, we've had on our various podcasts multiple mental health companies, tech focused. And I guess the most recent one was more about enabling insurance companies to more readily, pay for these types of services. There's variations, I'd say. I'm curious, is just from a company perspective, how you position yourself in the market.
Yeah. I mean, we position ourselves as the highest quality provider for mental health services in the market. And we've demonstrated that with 12 published papers, showing our methods and outcomes. We also issued the mental health quality scorecard, which is a first in the industry look at a sort of auditable list of what it takes to deliver great care reliably and safely at scale. And we report very detailed, outcome measures back to all of our partners. And so that's been our foundation, our positioning from day one. The other part of that that's really critical, if you want to have high quality care, you've got to be able to deliver that care to the patient populations that need it the most. And so in our market, there's also, a lot of companies or a lot of providers sort of top out at a certain severity level that they're comfortable with within their system to treat, leaving patients with that higher severity and acuity with few options. And so we decided early on that we were going to lean into that. We developed our suicide prevention program. We now have our intensive outpatient program for substance use and mental health, allowing us to treat people all the way up to sort of the highest severity and acuity you can treat in an outpatient setting, helping to reduce admissions and readmissions and inpatient stays and ER visits and similar high cost events.
And do you work through the payers? How do you get the word out about Brightside?
We partner closely with payers. So we have close national relationships with all the major payers. We've got about 175 million lives under contract that we partner for. And so work closely on programs with our payer partners. We also work with health systems. If you went to whatever health system near you and tried to get a psychiatry appointment, chances are you've got something like a 6-month wait until the next appointment. So, health systems tend to always have much more demand than they are able to meet, as well as different specialty areas within that where they may have different sort of supply imbalances. And so we partner with health systems to help solve the broader range of behavioral health needs. And then we meet consumers where they are, which is often, out looking for information on their own, giving them an easy on-ramp into care.
Mm-hmm. And now as you kind of see where Brightside sits in the overall landscape among the overall providers, I'm sure there's like a map out there somewhere about all the different mental health logos on one page and what categories they sit in and how they maybe overlap and which one's better at something than the other. How do you feel like you're doing? Do you feel good about where you sit in that overall landscape?
I feel great about where we sit. I know we have made the deepest and most robust investments in the industry in quality. And there's a difference in any industry between what some marketing teams say and what some product teams have built. But, I'm highly confident that we deliver the best care available. A lot of the focus in our industry has really been around streamlining a lot of the inefficiencies around credentialing, contracting, and billing, a lot of the sort of nuts and bolts from an operational standpoint of care delivery. And that's helped really streamline business operations for independent clinicians that can join platforms to do that. But it doesn't really touch upon quality. So starting to measure outcomes with measurement-based care is a beginning concept of at least being able to ponder quality. But in order to move the needle on quality, you need to do things like select the right clinicians. You need to train and supervise those clinicians. You need to offer them specific resources to make sure they're delivering evidence-based care with timely interventions and informed decisions. You got to give them escalation pathways. You got to help people who may have elevated suicide risk and need specialized follow-up and care navigation and many, many more things. And so I know that, looking around the landscape, we have decided that that's the part of the landscape where we want to win. That's what we care about and believe that fundamentally, quality will win an important part of the market. It's not the easy path, and it takes a lot of hard work and has a lot of complexity underneath the hood, but it's the thing that we're inspired by and care about and, feel good about where that's all going.
I'd like to touch a little bit on your team, your maybe executive team. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came together and maybe like what each person's strengths are?
Yeah, really nice question. I just have a phenomenal team and couldn't do anything on a daily basis without having really great people around me. Some of it is hard work and a lot of it's a lot of luck. And the one thing I would credit having such a great team to is having such a clear and authentic mission. And the way that we believe and stand behind our values and the things that we're setting out to do attracts people who just fundamentally care about that same work. And that's been a great opportunity for us. So in no particular order, just thinking about our executive team, we're really fortunate to hire Hans Nelson, who came from GoodRx. He's our chief data officer. So just phenomenal, data thinker, and really helped to build out our entire data infrastructure and all the things we're doing with data, machine learning, and AI. As part of that or later, Hans helped us to bring Matt Mohibian, who's our CTO, who also came from GoodRx previously at Iodine and at Google. Just phenomenal engineer, in the full stack as well as with AI, and really understands product as well. So just really fortunate and strong on the product side. Rounded up by Mark Hayes, who came from Flatiron Health, who's our head of product, just former engineer, deep healthcare experience, really great product thinker and leader. On the ops side, our COO is Julia Bernstein. She's got deep experience across mental health and digital health. Most recently at 30 Madison, spent time at Beacon, at Tempest, and other companies. So really experienced, really gets stuff done, and just phenomenal person. Chris Murray is our CFO. He came from Evolent Health. He was managing FP&A at a public company, with a $1 billion budget. So a lot of experience managing really complicated things. Kat Noren is our head of people, really great people leader with experience at Salesforce as well as other startups. And then Mimi Winsberg is our chief medical officer and co-founder. She's a Stanford-trained psychiatrist with 30 years of practice, a lot of time spent thinking about how you use data to inform better clinical decision-making, and just, a phenomenal clinical leader that holds our quality bar for all of our clinical practice, as well as helps drive and guide a lot of our product development that aligns with, supporting those clinical pathways.
Another big part of being successful in building a company, of course, is the culture. Is there kind of a key insight that you could share that you think makes maybe how you're building your culture unique?
Yeah, I sat down just based on some advice from early investors in probably the third month after starting the company, right? It was a big leap of faith that okay, we're going to make it. We're going to have a company where we're going to be building a culture. But I wanted to write down sort of what I thought we stood for, and came up with a set of values that I think are the same today as they were then, that we call the Brightside Way. And those are really focused around, one, staying oriented around our mission and our vision, and clarifying from the get-go that step one is we have an unwavering focus on impact. We never compromise on patient care. We will never make an exception. And knowing that everybody in the company knows that and internalizes that and believes that. Second was that we wanted to build a distributed company, and one that didn't have excessive hierarchy or require tons and tons of oversight. So again, this real opportunity in hiring people that are mission driven and inspired means they're intrinsically motivated. And if you hire great people and point them at the right work, you can get a lot done without having to look over people's shoulders. So we really focused on strategic planning cycles and trying to get good at making sure we're intentional about what to work on, because that's one of the biggest challenges every company has, is just, you want to do everything. And if you try to do too much, you're not very good at any of it. So being really thoughtful and intentional about what to work on and making sure we can communicate that well and align everybody around it so that independent people collaborating across very fluid team structures can be really effective in that. We also wanted really a problem-solving mindset, so that those people are empowered to solve problems and are really sort of adopting a growth mindset. Want to focus on sort of the community we build together and how we make each other better. and the way we connect, and then making sure that all of it is pervaded with this idea of we care for ourselves and each other, that we're showing up as ourselves at work, that we're looking out for each other at work, and we're creating this environment where we all feel like we're doing our best work, we're empowered, we're aligned, and that work is not everything in our lives, that we know we're whole people with real lives outside of work, and that we're bringing those things together in a way that is sustainable and not only doable, but we can really thrive within that. So focusing on both the mission and on the people, that duality, and then the way we've encoded that and tried to live that every day, I think is really the core focus for us from a values standpoint and a culture standpoint.
Can you tell us a little bit about your investors and how they may have helped the company aside from financial capital?
Great question. I mean, yeah, I've been fortunate to have some really good investors: Acme Capital, Bullpen, Tri Ventures, Section 32, and a number of others that are really phenomenal. And I would be remiss if I didn't also mention Moose. And so I have a team of backers who just have a breadth of perspectives and a ton of experience that offer me a ton of value. So one is just like operational, where I talk all the time to different people in my investor base as well as on my board. So I also would add just a really phenomenal independent board member named Jeff Margolis, who's a very seasoned operator, as well as Evan Jones, who's another really seasoned operator. So most of it is just really around like talking through daily, weekly operations and questions, and having a seasoned set of perspectives on different decisions that we have to make. And that's often prioritizing decisions of should we do this now or later, or A or B, problem solving, and benchmarking and that kind of thing. And so I just try to be a sponge and absorb as much as I can from all of them. And so, that's really the way that we work together. We'll do also, deeper annual planning and that kind of thing, but it's really just about driving and capturing all of the accumulated knowledge and experience that I don't always have, right? For me, this is my first time founding a company. And so, it was my first time being at Series C and pondering some of the questions that we have from a growth standpoint. And so being able to lean on others who have seen and done these things before gives me just additional confidence that we can navigate through all the inevitable ups and downs.
What's different about your challenges today versus what they were maybe in the early phase of the company?
I've told a couple of people this, that when I was an early stage founder, when we were like Series A, I imagined a future state when we were, I saw other companies like raising a Series C, and when they seemed like they'd really gotten product market fit, and I imagined it must be pretty easy, right? You've got product market fit, like everybody wants what you got, you just keep doing more of it. And I couldn't have been more wrong. This stage of the company, like in the growth stage, is as hard or harder than the early stage, just in different ways. So one, building and maintaining a team at sort of bigger and bigger levels is really complicated. And so there's just a lot that goes to building out the infrastructure and the team and the processes and systems to make sure everybody can do the work. Our competitive landscape has gotten much more crowded. And so all of the elements of that are much more nuanced. Growing at scale is harder and harder, right? So when you need to grow 50% from 10 million to 15 million, you need an incremental 5 million of revenue. But when you're at 100 million and you need another 50 million of revenue, that's a 10 times bigger problem to go try to solve. And often you've already been working at for years trying to solve that same problem. So it's not necessarily that you have a ton of new tools available to you to try to solve it. So there's a ton of hard work there. You've got to also start thinking more and more about regulatory and legal issues. And so, the aperture widens, the number of things you've got to track is increasingly complex. And the truth is you have more on the line, right? The further down the path you get, the more it would cost to have a setback. And so there's increasing pressure on execution at each step.
Did you find that at the beginning you already had the leadership skills to scale a company? And then at the same time, looking at where you are now, do you feel like you've changed a lot as a leader?
I think fortunately, again, the thing that is both my strength and weakness, I would say, is that I'm an idealist. And so setting out to solve this problem in this way without compromise was really what allowed me to plant a flag and to really show up as a leader and bring other people who really believed in that mission. I mean, I think that's sort of the essential starting point of being able to be a leader. Otherwise, I think in leading product teams, I had honed, many of the other sort of skills and processes that I think set me up to be able to be effective as a leader and collaborate well with great people around me. And I think, as the company has grown, it gets harder and harder. You're asked to do more things. And really one of the things you've got to be great at is just being a fast learner and a good decision maker under uncertainty. And I do think I'm good at those two things. there are lots and lots of things that are hard, right? Like you need to start getting audits and you need to, start doing all kinds of things you haven't done before and optimizing elements of performance that didn't matter as much, when the company was at an earlier stage. And so the mindset really has to shift and the things you're focused on day to day. And so I'm constantly learning, constantly trying to get better and better at things. And, some of it comes really fast and some is a bit of a grind and involves making a few mistakes as we get there. Overall, that idealism allows me to continue to just be a major optimist and I think a continued effective leader for the organization. And fortunately, my investors and board tell me that they think that's the case, and I'll keep going until they tell me it's not.
Last two questions. One is, can you tell us about a person who has had a profound influence on you?
Well, I'm going to talk about my dad here, and I'll probably get emotional doing it, but he's the reason I started Brightside. He has suffered from depression his whole life. He, for the longest time, didn't know how or wasn't able to get treatment when he was young. It wasn't until he was married to my mom that she finally convinced him to go try to get some care. But from his first appointment to when he finally got treatment that worked, it took about 10 years. He got caught in the healthcare swirl and missed follow-ups and handoffs and failed drug trials and all that kind of thing. And he just kind of quietly went through it and tried to make it so that the rest of us weren't affected by it. And so I just feel for him a lot. I'm inspired by him. That's why I show up to work every day, for him and for every other family that has someone like him.
Last question. Can you tell us about a charity, cause, or other endeavor that you're passionate about?
Now you're giving me a chance to talk about my mom. My mom's on the board of an organization called Canine Companions, and she's been working with them for like 30 years. They train dogs to assist people with disabilities. And so they're just really life-changing animals and programs and just really amazing people doing this to everything from like breeding the dogs, which my mom does, through, training, both early training and advanced training, and then supporting everybody in the program. So really beautiful organization, really changing lives. And, it's been great to see my mom be able to go find something she cares about, a great community, and have a great impact there.
That's amazing. Brad, thanks again for taking the time. It's been a great conversation.
RJ, thank you so much. Appreciate you having me.